us, just checking, give me thumbs. Yeah, okay, I hear it. Okay. Most of us are pretty poor listeners. We're especially poor at listening to children. And what I want you to imagine is how different things might be if everybody felt that they were seen, that they were safe, and that they were somebody. I want to start by stealing a word from the Gen Alphas that I teach. I am a yapper. As a 7-year-old, I yapped and I yapped and I yapped. I talked endlessly just to fill the space, and I wanted everyone to know how interesting I was. I loved new vocabulary and I soaked up new words. On TV, I saw somebody say that they felt sick with guilt. And I thought, guilt. I like that word. There's not many 7-year-olds use that word. That's mine now. The problem was I didn't really know what it meant. I thought that guilt was an illness. In the same way that you could be sick with flu or sick with chickenpox, you could be sick with guilt. We were at the seaside. I was on one of those fairground rides that kind of shakes you all around, and I started to feel really nauseous. My parents were watching from the side, and I shouted over to them, "Mum, I feel guilty. I'm going to be very guilty, Dad." The lady who's sitting next to me is starting to look very concerned at this point. I turn to her and say, "I think I'm about to be guilty on my trousers." Fast forward 20 years, and now that young yapper is a primary school teacher here in East London. I'm on a residential visit with a group of 30 of my 9 and 10-year-old students, and we're heading out into the New Forest. It's autumn, it's about 5 p.m., it's very dark, and it's very cold. A girl called Rachel says to me, "It looks scary." I say, "It's actually really interesting to look at an ancient forest." She says, "But it looks scary." I say, "Oh, I get it. Listen, you don't need to be terrified, okay? You're absolutely fine. You're here with us. You're fine." She's frowning now. She says, "I didn't say I was terrified. I'm not scared. I was just saying it looks scary." What is it that ties those two misunderstandings together? This: every single one of us, all children in fact, have a profound need to communicate their reality to the adults in their world. And when they cannot get that meaning across, it's profoundly frustrating for them. I was saying I feel guilty, but the meaning I was trying to convey was something completely different. And Rachel wasn't scared. I'd misunderstood her. That was not what was happening at all. In fact, I was just listening to what I thought she was saying rather than what she said. If we do not chat, and we don't listen during that chat, we kind of miss out on the context of what people are saying. And without that context, we never really understand where people are coming from. So most of us are poor listeners, and it's not because we don't care. In fact, we're poor listeners, in many cases, precisely because we do. When people talk to us, we want to advise them, we want to help them, to guide them, but a lot of the time, what they need for us to do is just to shut up and let them speak. We just need to listen. In a recent Harvard Grad School of Education podcast, the educator, Aisha Upchurch, outlined the 3 H's that govern how she shows up in her learning spaces. People need to feel held, to feel heard, and to feel humanized. Now, I really like this as a guide for what I'm trying to do in my own work, but so that I'm not being accused of being a copycat, I want to offer my own trio. Children need to feel seen, to feel safe, and to feel like somebody. And I ask this: how can changing the ways that we interact lead to children feeling seen, safe, and feeling like somebody, not an invisible entity, not a nameless face in the crowd? In most of the schools that I've worked in, we have a rule around non-verbal behavior management. So when the teacher wants the children's attention, we just raise our hand, their conversation dies down, they raise their hand, and then they're looking and listening. It just means that we're not constantly begging and shouting for their attention the whole day. Now, we all enjoy awkward introductions, so I'm going to get you to do that with each other now. So look to someone who's near you who you've not spoken to yet. I want you to introduce yourself and have a very, very quick hello, but as soon as my hand goes up, I want you all to go shtum, and I want your hands to fire up too. Can we do that? Let's all make a new friend. Off you go. It's so nice. So nice. Pretty good. Pretty good. Not as good as the average 9-year-old, but pretty good. Pretty good. So a few years ago, I was teaching a really wonderful student called Ali. He brought a lot of vitality and unpredictability into the classroom, and I quite liked that. But Ali had another side too. He was a master at the art of disruption. He used his classmates' obedience to my hand signal like his own personal social snowplow, clearing a path to my undivided attention. So I'd have them all quiet. The whole class goes quiet. I'm about to share some fascinating thing about fractions, and suddenly, from across the room, I would hear, "Do you like Dr. Dre, sir?" And it's surprising, and it is funny, but also, it is breaking a rule. Maybe I should just immediately tell him off, or write his name on the whiteboard, reprimand him in some way. But when we think about a child's need to feel seen, to feel safe, and to feel like somebody, at the very least, we start asking different questions. So you wonder why it is that a child would go to these risky lengths of interrupting, shouting out like this, just for the sake of a little chat. Why would he do it? So I spoke to him, and I asked him, why are you doing this? Is this something you notice that you're doing? And he goes quiet, he looks down at the ground and says, "I just sometimes need to check that you've remembered me." Perhaps some children need a little more convincing than others that they're being seen. Maybe their relationships are not quite as strong as others. So what can I do? I need some sort of solution. So I said to him, "Okay, how about we try this? You do need to do the hand signal thing, but at the very end, when I'm putting down my hand, there'll be a bit which is just between you and me, where I'll do this. Now, if you do that back, that means that you're absolutely fine, and you'll know that I've seen you. But if you don't do that back, then I'll come and check in with you and see that you're okay. How does that sound?" And he loved that solution. It meant that he was being seen, the disruption stopped, the learning was back to where it should be. But it was only shortly after that I watched the horror film The Shining, and I realized that this little finger thing I was getting him to do is the thing that the little possessed boy does. Like, "Red rum, red rum, red rum." Terrifying. So, I said to him, of course, "If you want to talk to me about Dr. Dre, you're very welcome to do so, but we will have to do it in your time." And he was absolutely okay with those terms and conditions. So that was 6 months of our time. So this might seem like complete foolishness on my part, but it's an example of a different kind of listening to what they don't say as well as to what they do say, the kind of grace and understanding that we can show somebody when we really do understand them. So more recently then, in the last 5 years, I've begun working as a mythology educator meets nature practitioner meets poetry teacher. What is it then that ties these three things together? I realized teaching mythology, teaching poetry, and teaching nature, in all of those cases, what I'm doing is having interesting, deep chats with children about life. And when I say chats, I really, really do mean chats. We're not talking about classical debate or Socratic dialogues. We're talking yapping. We're talking chat. This is the kind of conversation in which children share how they're actually feeling. It's the origins of their creative writing, and it's the roots of their poetry. So when I do lead these poetry trips out into the New Forest, instead of packing every single moment with pre-planned activities, just like we do back in the school, we make sure that we protect that time for walking and for hiking, for listening and for noticing, for writing and for chat. And when we do that, that's when all of the talk changes. They don't just chat about TikTok and Skibbity Toilet, whether Messi is better than Ronaldo. Instead, they chat about everything all at once, about how unfair it is that the New Forest is so much cleaner than back in East Ham, about how the reason I like carrying this stick is because it reminds me of my grandparents and they're carpenters in my home country. With real laughter and real conviction, they argue about what's better, jollof rice or biryani. It's a tricky one. About how nice it is to see the stars at night, how that makes them feel big and small at the same time. About their utter befuddlement over what breastfeeding is from one very, very confused child who imagined that infants crawl around guzzling bosoms. Their talk is as blindsiding, unpredictable, and volatile as life itself, because their talk is life. Chaos is the natural state of things, and it finds its home in our chat. Their talk is simple and it's complex. It's silly and it's profound. It's sacred and it's profane, but all of it is just chat. And it is just chat. But as adults, we know that in our times of greatest need, what we need more than anything else is the right sort of chat with the right sort of listener. Here's the thing. Children don't communicate what they're actually feeling in their exercise books. But every single child hides diamonds in their chatter. And if they're feeling safe, if they're feeling seen, if they're feeling like they are somebody, then perhaps they might trust us to help them to find those diamonds. And this isn't just about children either, is it? Like, this isn't just about teaching or parenting. Every single one of us has that need to feel heard, to feel held, and to feel humanized. And we can all relate to how horrible it feels to be overlooked, to be ignored, to be silenced and not listened to. It hurts. In the UK last year, over 1.76 million adult referrals were made to NHS talking therapies. When it comes to adults, we understand that there is a profound need to chat. Yet, whether by accident or by design, we have an education system that has methodically eliminated any space at all for children to chat. And I think it's wrong. So what can we do? As individuals, we need to look critically at how we interact with each other. As educators, we need to respect the power of chat. And simply, we all need to learn to shut up and to listen a little more. So in my work, I get to share old wisdom with new people. And this poem really stood out to me about the alchemist and the fool. The alchemist dies in sorrow and frustration, whilst the fool finds treasure in a ruin. The words of Sadi of Shiraz, a 13th century Persian poet. We encourage children to follow our lead, to sit quietly and to chase after the gold stars that we might choose to give them. Yet every single one of them is hiding diamonds in their chatter, the treasure in their ruins. For so many of them, those diamonds lie undiscovered, and eventually they're forgotten. What a pleasure it is, too, to find those treasures with them, to wade with them into the beautiful uncertainties of their own mind, and to recognize that by doing so, we, though we're older, are still similarly beautifully jumbled. If searching for the treasure in the ruins is foolish, then I think we should all embrace that role of the fool. Learning lives in these liminal spaces, in the time between things, in the chats on the coach on the way back from a school trip, in the chats in the playground before the school day even starts, in the chats on a walk in the woods with your friend. So the consequences of not listening are immense. But the solution is not only simple, it's thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable. Chat. Let's sanctify and elevate that high art of low talk. So hush now, adults. The children are talking. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.